Hello, I'm the Media Wiz, because one art form wasn't enough. And, well, I was going to do a review of Shrek the Third, but I'm still working on it, so I decided I'd push it back for a little bit. I'm probably going to get around to it maybe January. I'll get to it eventually. I don't want it to seep over into December, because I already have stuff for then planned. But, I'm going to talk about another movie that I wanted to talk about for a while, and, I don't really think it's really worthy of a full review, so I'm just going to do a vlog on it instead. It is Shorts, A Not So Tall Tale from Robert Rodriguez. Yes, the same guy responsible for the Spy Kids movies, which is all over the advertisement for this, and Shark Boy and Lava Girl, which is going to get a sequel on Netflix. God knows why. Yeah, so I might as well just get this right off the bat. On a technical standpoint, this movie is better than Shark Boy and Lava Girl. It's not as stupid. It's not to say there's no stupidity in it. There's a lot of dumb, like obviously childish Robert Rodriguez trying to appeal to his kids stuff, but not as much as Shark Boy and Lava Girl. That movie was just nothing but that. But at the same time, that's also kind of what made Shark Boy and Lava Girl unintentionally hilarious. Like that's what made Shark Boy and Lava Girl kind of have a so bad it's funny element to it. This movie, it's nowhere near as good as the first few Spy Kids. Like, the first Spy Kids is a genuinely good movie. And then, the second one at least has that Steve Buscemi quote that everyone likes to meme. You know, do you think God ever looks upon his own creation? The third one, well, Adam Sykes of the Blockbuster Show is already talking about that, so I don't even need to say anything. You can just wait for that video to come out. But this movie, it's kind of in the middle. It's not as so bad it's funny like Shark Boy and Lava Girl could be, but it's also not as genuinely good as like the first Spy Kids. And it's also not as frustratingly bad as Spy Kids 4, which is, you could probably see my review of that. That movie was just insufferable to sit through. It was so bad. But this one, it has a unique concept. There's things about it that could be a good family movie. It's just that it's obviously weighed down by that, you know, oh, I'm going to put in stuff that my kids think is cool or think is funny, and I'm just going to, put it in there for them. And, these kids are probably going to grow up and be like, wow, Dad, why did we do that? But, on with the story. So, the movie is called Shorts because it's broken up into a series of vignettes that all make up one big story about this small town that has a magical wishing rock that gets found by different people in the town. And basically, it makes up one big story, but it's told out of sequence. Like, it goes... well, first off, the movie starts with a short that is kind of referenced all throughout, where it's, you got these two kids, they're like twins, and they're in a staring contest. That goes all throughout the movie as like a little background gag. And they make the whole short at the beginning about that. But then, it's all told out of sequence. The main story itself, you could honestly re-edit this movie and have it just go in sequence, and it wouldn't really matter. Basically, it goes episode 2, episode 1, episode 4, episode 3, and then episode 5. So, yeah, it just goes a little bit out of sequence. And there's tons of stuff where they go, and there's tons of stuff where you'll see it, and you're like, wait, why is that happening? And then they go back to before that happens in the story, and you're like, oh, so that's why it's happening. Like, there's the explanation. Like, wait, why is there just a bunch of candy bars flying out of that kid's pockets? Oh, because he wished for an unlimited supply of candy bars. It's stuff like that. It goes without saying, it's no Memento. First short focuses on our main kid, Toby, or as he's given the nickname, Toe. And there's a lot of that kind of, like, dumb naming thing going on throughout this entire movie. This kid has the nickname Toe. The main villain's name is Carbon Black, and Mr. Black is his like unofficial name. And the kids just have the worst names. They really do. Like, one kid is straight up named Loogie, and the other kid's name, like, his brothers are named Lug and Laser. And they have a baby sister who's just called Baby. Right before Spy Kids 4, apparently Robert Rodriguez just has a thing for not naming babies and just calling them Baby. Reminds me of the MLP Season 6 premiere where Twilight's parents show up at the end, and it's like, are we going to go this whole reunion without calling her by her name, or are we just going to call her The Baby? But the main girl in the movie, her name is Helvetica, and she's the daughter of Mr. Black, Helvetica Black. And I will give them this, they actually were clever enough to make a joke about how that's a font. I kind of thought that was pretty funny. Because one kid whose name is Nose, like, I get it, yeah. He's the dad that named his kids, like, Rocket, Rebel, Rogue, and Racer Max. Like, I know he names his kids that, but it's like, he's terrible at naming characters in his movies, especially his kids' movies. So yeah, at one point the kid Nose is like, oh, you know, I'm not scared of you, typeface. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, the main first short we get is focusing on Toby. And at first I was like, I recognize that actor. What was that kid in? And then I went through his IMDb, found out he was in movie 43. He was in the period sketch with Chloe Grace Moretz. And I think I even brought that up in my review. It's just I forgot about it all that time that had gone by from, you know, that review to now. I was like, oh, that poor actor. Although, you know, give him this. Shorts was looking like a really big step in the right direction compared to movie 43. Oh, man. So he's your typical outcast kid. He has braces. He's made fun of. He's picked on by the school bully, who is in this case led by this Helvetica Black girl, who constantly gets her drones to stuff him into a trash can because she has this big thing for wasps, and apparently this is a thing that wasps do. So Toby is running home from the bullies who are chasing him, who begin throwing rocks at him, and they do like this slow motion Vietnam running through like a minefield thing. I don't know what that was about. And then he ends up getting hit. They end up throwing rocks at him, which kind of reminded me of the original It miniseries, the scene where the bullies and the main kids are throwing rocks at each other. But he ends up getting hit with this rainbow rock, which is the rock that grants wishes, and that's the whole plot of the movie, is that everybody ends up finding this rock at some point and making a wish, and they all go horribly wrong. And so in this case, Toby wishes for friends, and the friends that he's given are a bunch of little aliens that float around in these little UFOs. And they can do anything. They help make dinner for him. They take his braces off. And the next day, he brings them to school in his backpack, but of course, a bunch of stuff goes wrong. This did make me flash back to Shark Boy and Lava Girl with the part with the Linus, that whole scene. I did not, Mr. Electric, have him sent to the principal's office and have him expelled. That's what it kind of reminded me of, because he accidentally hits Helvetica in the face. He's like trying to get the aliens to stop messing around in his backpack, and he hits her by accident. And then they end up fighting because she threatens to eat like his only friend at the school, which is this little goldfish. And for some reason, the teacher doesn't notice any of that going on. Like, I don't know why that is. Maybe she's afraid of her father, because her father seems to have control over everybody in this town. Because they established that he's not only like the richest man in the town, he also has like the only building, like the only company in this entire town where almost everybody works at. Like, and even at one point he fires someone at the beginning. It's like, pack up your things. You're also moving out of your home. What? Just what? Oh, whatever. So they end up fighting. They end up falling out a window, and then they end up in like arm casts. That ends that segment. They fall out a window, and the worst thing they do is they get arm braces, and they still don't like each other. Then we jump forward to episode 1, where we see Loogie and his brothers. Toe is at least a nickname for Toby. The kid named Loogie, that's not a nickname. He's just Loogie. That's the character's birth name. That's just hell no. So him and his brothers want to go off on an adventure instead of just staying inside playing video games or watching TV, but there's a rainstorm out, and then the rainstorm goes away. They go outside, they find the rock at the end of a rainbow, or as they say, at the beginning of the rainbow. And from there, they just make a bunch of different wishes, and they go on this like little adventure. It's probably the most exciting out of all the segments. It has a bunch of creative visuals here and there. The special effects aren't that bad, and unlike Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and also Spy Kids 3, which just took place entirely on green screen, here the effects actually aren't that bad. There's a whole thing where they wish for a castle and a moat around it that has crocodiles and snakes. They go down and they see all the crocodiles, and At one point, the rock ends up inside the crocodile, and the crocodile ends up on two legs. Actually, all the crocodiles end up on two legs, and they apparently can climb out of a moat because out of a moat that goes like down into a chasm. Because then they end up crawling up the castle trying to get the kids who escape while flying on a pterodactyl. Instead of just wishing out of the canyon to get away from the crocodiles, all they do is they're just like, quick, I wish something would take us away. And then a pterodactyl just soars out, and also later the pterodactyl craps on one of the kids. Because, haha, poop joke. Haha, poop. Ugh. It's almost... I mean, I'll give them this. This is probably the only, like, joke like that in the movie. It's not like Freedom Force, which was just nonstop, you know, oh, the fat kid farted. So give him that, at least. The kid wishes for, he screws up telekinesis at first, and he says telephonesis, and a telephone pops out of his head. And then he wishes for telekinesis, and then, like, just this mighty wind ends up blowing away the crocodiles. And it made me wonder, I'm like, so are they just gone? Like, where are they now? Same thing with the aliens from the first sketch. They're at the hospital seeing Toby through the window, and they're just like, should we abduct him? Nah, he wished for friends. That's all he wanted. He has friends right in front of him. He just doesn't see it. And then the aliens are just never seen until the end. And same thing with these crocodiles. They're blown away, and I'm like, did they just get flung to some other part of town where they... God knows they probably just attacked and ate a bunch of people. Like, what happened? They're just gone now because they were blown away through telekinesis? All right. And then they make a wish that one of them was super intelligent when they're back at the house. And the baby ends up becoming super intelligent. They try to get rid of the rock. And also, this is one of 3 times they reference something environmental in this film, because this movie has a weird environmental message tacked on at the end. I'll get to that in a second, but this is the first time they reference something like that. They make a brief reference of like, man, there was a horrible rainstorm and now it's just all bright and sunny. Must be global warming. I was like, yeah, because that's how global warming works. So they try to get rid of the rock, but it ends up landing at that site where the bullies threw the rocks at Toby, which is eventually what segued into the second short that was shown first. So then we jump ahead to episode 4, which is about this kid Nose, who is the son of a germophobic scientist who works for the company, played by William H. Macy. And William H. Macy was probably the best thing in this whole movie. He has like the funniest line, whether it was intentional or not. At one point, they show that these guys are germaphobes, and they always walk outside in like hazmat suits. And they always wrap their house in plastic, and they're always like spraying themselves down with biochemicals to kill off bacteria. And at one point, the short ends with them running outside, not wearing the suits, and the kid knows to his dad is like, we're okay, we're fine, see? And then William H. Macy says, you're right, I didn't explode. That was the funniest part of the whole movie. Just William H. Macy saying that. His line delivery was great. You're right, I didn't explode. So what happens here, even though the kid is a germaphobe, he has this irrational habit of picking his nose and eating boogers, and he ends up flicking a booger onto like this platform for this invention that his dad's working on. And at one point he gets the rock because Toby's sister, who is his tutor, visiting the house to tutor the kid, finds the rock in his front yard, and that's explained in the following short, which we'll get to. She's like, here, I found this rainbow rock in your front yard, you can have it. And he wishes, man, I wish my dad's inventions would work. So the invention ends up bringing the booger to life, and it becomes this giant blob monster. And like I said, with the one right before this, and even the short with Toby and the aliens, it's like, this movie has interesting concepts, and it's not a terrible idea for a movie. It's just that it has that, like, childish, like, element to all these Robert Rodriguez movies where it's like, you could just tell he thought this was just like so cool to his kids, and he's like, yeah, my kids think it's cool, so I'm just gonna make it into a movie. And it's like, you don't have to do that. And if anything, this is what I kept thinking of while watching this movie. Not only were the concepts interesting and the effects were not actually all that bad, I couldn't help but think if this movie was handled by different people, maybe it would have been a little bit more interesting, maybe like a little bit more exciting for a family movie. Like, it made me think, if the movie had the same tone of something like Goonies, where it's like it wasn't afraid to get a little scary, a little dark, something like that. Like maybe then the movie would, because it's an interesting premise. This whole idea of like, kids finding a wishing rock and like, I don't know, because Goonies is a good example of a family movie that anybody could watch because it actually does have a set of balls. It's a movie that's not afraid to get scary. And that's what makes it such a movie that, kids and adults can watch. But, this movie obviously plays that down and tries to go for that, that safe, ooh, isn't that so cool? We got aliens and we got crocodiles and we got giant robots and giant bugs. Isn't that cool? It's going for that kind of thing. It also made me think structure-wise, maybe the movie could have been a little bit better, just like, because you got this idea of shorts, and the thing that connects it all together is this overarching story of the Rainbow Rock that grants wishes. Part of me couldn't help but think, like, maybe the structure could have been that each of the shorts seem disconnected. Like, maybe not have it that each short is about, people who know each other. You could have it that, like, you're following a different group of people and the rock just somehow ends up to them. And then maybe have it somewhat connect at the end. Like, maybe something brings everybody together. But all the shorts could be relatively disconnected. But no, obviously, like I said, you could re-edit this movie and just have it that it goes in a straightforward timeline, but they want it to be interesting, and so they're like, oh, well, we'll just have all them broken up into shorts, and, we'll have it somewhat told out of order. And it's not that that was a terrible idea. That's actually what made the movie a little bit more interesting. So, yeah, they wish the kid ends up getting a giant booger monster attacking him. That was the sentence I just said. And then the dad, played by William H. Macy, and the son end up outside. And the dad has this like device, like a Ghostbusters thing, and just sucks up the giant booger monster and shrinks it down and traps it in a little case thing. The next short focuses on Toby's parents. The dad, who I recognized as the guy who isn't Charlie Sheen on Two and a Half Men. Can't believe I recognized him. Maybe it's because I've been watching reruns of Two and a Half Men recently. But I recognized him. I'm like, oh my god, it's that guy. So the thing with Toby's parents is that they feel disconnected because they both work for Mr. Black's company, where the company that they work for makes this thing called the Black Box. And it's basically just their attempt at mimicking companies like Apple and Samsung. That like it's a device that can do anything. It can play music. It can connect to the internet. It could probably help you mow your lawn, help you shave, and pay your taxes. I don't know. It's a thing that can do anything. And we want to crush the competition. We've got a bunch of imitators, but we got to dominate the market. And the thing about this company is that they pit their own employees against each other. They have a Team A, which has Toby's dad, and Team B, which has Toby's mom. The point that they were trying to do was they were trying to get data on what they could do to make the device better. But why would you make it a competition and then have it that, oh, if one team succeeds, they get bonuses and the other team gets fired? You're wiping out half of your staff right there. That's not good business. I get it. Oh, typical kids movie. He's a corrupt businessman and he needs to learn a lesson about being humble at the end. So I get it. So the parents feel disconnected. There's also this message about we spend too much time on our technology and we don't spend enough time connecting. Which I know someone's probably going to make a okay boomer comment relating to now, but whatever. It's like they thought it was bad in 2009 or whenever this movie came out. They did not know what was coming when it comes to the advances of technology and separation of, people interacting. But anyway, so the parents feel disconnected because, they're pitted against each other at work and they're always on their black box devices. So that night, and this comes before the Nose story. I just want to point that out. Because at the very end, Toby throws the rock and it lands in Nose's front yard. But they're going to this big costume party that their boss is holding. And the mom accidentally gets her hands on the rock and she wishes that they were closer. Which ends up having them merge together like Siamese twins. All the while that's going on, they start to establish more things between Toby and Helvetica, because Toby goes to the party trying to get the rock back, and Helvetica learns about the rock, and she makes a bunch of wishes, like she wishes her dad would listen to her, which makes his ears grow gigantic. And it's a bunch of stuff like that, and if anything, I did like the whole thing about the parents. I thought their story was a little bit more interesting than the stuff that was going on with the kids. Because it's like, again, interesting concept for a story right there. You have these two people who are constantly, like, you know, they're married, but they're not really in a good place. They're always working. They don't have enough time for each other. So then you have it that they actually end up in a situation where they're forced to be together, and then they end up realizing, you know, we'll tell our boss, hey, you know, you don't piss against each other or we walk. I kind of like that element to it. But obviously, that was sugar coated and under a mountain of stuff like the girl wishing for a rocket bike. And then we get to the last short, which is, it would have been kind of interesting if the last short was actually played first and then we went back. That would have been a little bit more, again, that's what I'm saying with structure. Like, there's so many different things you could have done to make the structure a little bit more interesting. It's like, wait, whoa, how did we get here? Let's go back, you know, that kind of thing. Which they kind of do at the beginning. It's like, wait, whoa, we gotta go back a little bit. But it would have been interesting if the whole ending played forward and then they decided to go back. That would have been a little interesting. Basically what happens in this final short is that shortly after the attack with the giant booger, Mr. Black gets his hands on the rock and he wishes, you know, I can have all the money I want. I don't even need the company. I don't need to work on manufacturing black boxes. I don't need employees. I can just wish for all the money I want. And then he decides to take it a step further. He wishes, I wish I was the most powerful thing in the entire world. In which he turns into, he's holding the black box and it like grows on him. And he turns into this giant like transformer Enderman looking robot. And here's where the kids are like, oh no, you know, he's gone drunk with power. We gotta make wishes to stop him. So Helvetica wishes she was a giant wasp. Her brother wishes he was a giant dung beetle because she accidentally wished that he was a dung beetle in the short right before this. Don't ask. Toby wishes for the aliens to come back, and Loogie wishes for the crocodile army to come back. Oh, and they pay off a thing that they set up earlier, which was Toby's sister wished that her boyfriend would grow up, and so here he comes back and he's like a giant. That was paid off. Ultimately, everything ends up disappearing because The Rock has apparently been angered because everyone's been using it to wish for greedy, selfish things instead of wishing for things like world peace, which they referenced in the short with Loogie and his brothers. And it's like, yeah, why didn't they just wish for that? Once that wish came to them, they should have just wished it right then and there. But no, of course, that's the message. Then we wouldn't have a story. So, yeah, the message is everyone was using it to make greedy wishes instead of wishes that could, you know, save people instead. So now The Rock is about to destroy the universe, so everyone must hold hands, come together, and use the magic of friendship to destroy it. And so The Rock explodes, and then it rains, and now everyone's going to have to do their best to clean up the mess that they caused. And that's when we then see everyone's now on the right path. Loogie and his brothers have the adventure of their lives. Toby's parents are closer together, and Toby and Helvetica are now friends. I like the line that they said. It's like, well, even if we're not friends, let's just settle for no longer enemies. I just realized now, it just came to me, because I was thinking, like, that Helvetica girl, what does she remind me of? And it was like, oh, she reminds me of Christina Ricci from the Addams Family movies. She's like a knockoff Wednesday Addams. Because, I mean, even down to like the cynical look and the pigtails and all that kind of thing. She's like a Kmart Wednesday Addams. But anyway, so yeah. And then Mr. Black decides to take his company in a different direction. They're no longer working on the black box. They're working on the environmentally friendly green box. I mean, out of the things I've looked at so far on this show, especially from this year and last year as well, and a couple of years before, I mean, considering some of the other environmental media that I've looked at before, it's a lot more interesting compared to Awesome Possum, which was just a generic Sonic ripoff with an environmental message slapped in. It wasn't as phoned in and awkward as Birdemic, which just felt really, really forced. And goes without saying, it's better than Earth by Little Dicky, because that song sucks. So overall, this movie, I don't want to say it's bad, because it's nowhere near as frustrating as something like Shark Boy and Lava Girl if you watch that unironically. Like, the only way to watch that movie is ironically and to make fun of it as you watch it. But it's also not as, like, charming as, like, the first Spy Kids. There's definitely a lot more of that just forced Robert Rodriguez, like, oh, kids love bodily function jokes, so we'll just make a giant booger, and we'll put robots and aliens and crocodiles and all this other giant bugs. We'll just put all this stuff in there that kids love. But it's also not frustrating. Like I said, I want to hammer that home, that it isn't insufferable. Like, Shark Boy and Lava Girl was just like jam-packed to the brim with that, and it was just annoying and stupid in a lot of cases. And the lesson here about, they even have a thing at the end where Toby says something along the lines of, like, if you're gonna make a wish, make sure it's something worth wishing for. And I think that rings a little bit more clear compared to something like, some dreams are just so powerful they become real. It's like, what? What? The thing is, I could totally see this as a Netflix movie. I've seen so many dumb family movies on Netflix recently. Like, there was one called, like, Aliens Ate My Homework or something like that, and like, there was one called The Sleepover. Like, there are all these, like, they look like Disney Channel movies, and this has a little bit more production value than that, but not by much. I mean, it is funny because there's even a passing reference that's like where Toby's teacher at one point is like, she's like, "Oh, Toby, do you think you can simmer down your inner High School Musical there?" I will admit that actually did get a laugh out of me too. Like, there are funny things in this movie, which is more than I could say about Shark Boy and Lava Girl unironically. But if you watch it ironically, then there's tons of stuff to laugh at with Shark Boy and Lava Girl. Mr. Electric, have him sent to the principal's office and have him expelled. And then George Lopez's overacting is, oh my god, all over the place in that movie. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a decent family movie, it's not great, but totally harmless. That's what Shorts is. I heard that they wanted to make a sequel, but they didn't make as much money. It made some money back, but it didn't make enough to... There clearly was no high demand for a second Shorts movie. And I think it's fine. It's like, you just need one of these movies. You don't need to make everything a franchise. But apparently Robert Rodriguez went against that because, of course, we have Shark Boy and Lava Girl 2 to look forward to. I might make a video on that. I just might. Depending on how I feel at the time, and if I can watch it, then yeah, sure, I just might make a video. But I'm not making any promises yet. I'm just saying might. But yeah, overall, Shorts, fine little family movie. Could have been better. There's things that probably could have made the story a little bit more interesting, but as it stands, it's fine. It's not the worst thing ever. It's not going to kill you. If at the time of when this movie came out, this is the kind of movie that you'd rent at the video store, and parents may not be paying the best attention to it, and kids are obviously just going to love it because it's bright colors and all this cool stuff that they like. But overall, yeah, fine enough movie. Totally fine. Anyway, tune in next time for the Media Wiz, where I'm going to be doing a song review. I'm looking at a team-up between, of all people, the Beach Boys and the Fat Boys. These worlds somehow collided. I don't know. Yeah, so yeah, we'll look at that next time. But until then, I'm the Media Wiz, because One Art Form wasn't enough.